altcoin video. I'm going to cover some bigger name altcoins: Harmony One, Pirate Chain, Dogecoin, and Theta. And the reason I wanted to do this, they're looking, well, first off, it's good clickbait to garner a little bit more interest on my channel. But in my planning a little clickbait, I saw that they're behaving pretty similarly, and I think they might give us really good clues on what's about to happen in the market overall, given that I'm going to tag it up here, so you should be able to click it if you haven't watched my Bitcoin video from today. I show you how the posturings are all out of whack, and what I think looks logical for these, you know, hot item tokens that were YouTube tokens, essentially, maybe with the exception of Harmony One. But these are given a little bit of insight, roughly in agreement with what I was thinking, and perhaps indicate there might be slightly more downside on the Bitcoin chart if Bitcoin and Ethereum follow what altcoins are doing, as opposed to staying stronger than them. However, I'll show you here that I think Ethereum and Bitcoin will stay stronger than most altcoins per key moving averages like the daily 200, the weekly 10. However, this is going to provide a little bit of insight, and if you like these coins, you're just going to get some analysis on it anyway. And typically my analysis is best for folks a little newer to trading or clicking around with your money. Even if you don't consider yourself a trader, you're an investor, you want to, you know, buy low and sell 10 years later, this is still going to be really helpful for you, because what my channel does for new viewers, I show you that if you like Harmony One, or if you like OMI, you sell some OMI, you sell some Harmony One, instead of using your hard-earned money to constantly throw US dollars or euros into crypto. You can use what's called a 20 bag method, which I will also tag that, so you should see that popping up. It might say 10 bag though. You should, and it might be the library. So look for the video that says 10 bag within that library. But you just apply the number 20 to it instead of 10, and it'll make sense once you watch that video. So a lot of my channel helps people grow their crypto portfolio without dumping more and more money into it. So here we go. Harmony One is structured. So this is the daily chart, Harmony One. From a logical perspective, it looks like we might be setting up for some type of trend line being hit, a series of higher lows. And this would make perfect sense if 69 cents were hit on Harmony One, which I'll actually put a green box there. I think that price will wick down below the daily 200, which is this orange line here. Okay, I think it will wick below that and then try to almost immediately get back above it. But I think that a buyback zone, if you were to sell Harmony One now, or sell 20% of your Harmony One to buy back lower, I think somewhere in this range right here would be not just where, but when to pick it up. So how many days out would that be? Would that give us at least a cushion of 10 days? Oh yeah, so that's more than big enough. Maybe make it smaller. So I would say something like this, a wick down to here, and maybe one daily closure, or perhaps more, but I would assume that fairly quickly you would see price get back above this line, wick down, come back up, go like this, and keep charging for a series of higher lows. So specific to Harmony One, we're looking for potentially a third higher low that wicks below the daily 200. So remember that, third higher low, wick below the daily 200. Before we flip off of here, and I want you to remember that, I want to take a look at the weekly 10, which folks not new to my channel know that it's kind of like the master line, that and the weekly 21. So this would have, actually, where's the weekly 21? And so what this would do would have Harmony One recheck this bullish cross, as you can see right here. So the red going above the yellow is a bullish cross. This moves faster than this. So when there's downturn, the red crosses below the yellow because it moves faster as price is moving down. And when it crosses back above, that's typically gets a lot of price action across almost any asset in crypto. And then you often get a recheck of it, which it dips down below and then comes back up a week or two later and then continues its path. Or sometimes it just wicks hard and then closes above the 21 or at the 21. So what I'm saying here does align fairly closely with the idea that if this is the 21 here, that price would come back below, wick below, maybe close 1 week below 21 and then start marching back up. So it fits on a weekly basis too. However, I think throughout this video, I'm going to use mostly the daily 200 as it's fairly similar in level. And it's a very important line. So here we go. Maybe put price back on. So that's Harmony 1. Third higher low potential, wick below the daily 200. Let's go to Pirate Chain. And Pirate Chain did not form a substantially, it did form a substantially higher low relative to what the structure of Harmony 1 was. So if you look at Harmony 1, this higher low was a smaller percentage away from its all low, like its local low. It's only 11% above it. But on Pirate Chain, you have a bigger disparity. So I don't think that these are going to behave identically. You have a 50% difference. So I think that this Pirate Chain has a chance to do some type of like lower low fake out to break the structure of higher lows, break it, fake out, then come back up and recover, mostly because it got a bigger pump than Harmony 1 and its higher low was much higher than here. It's a little aggressive. It could hold. However, when you make a substantially higher low, a lot of times that second higher low, that they're the third one, I guess. So low, higher low, I guess second higher low, but the third low in a row. Sometimes it comes to match it. And so this is the 377, the daily 377 on Pirate Chain. It based off of it. I would assume that the next basing off would be one EMA up, which is the 200, just logically without even looking at price. So that happens to align with what I just said from a structural standpoint. When you have a higher low that's much, much higher, typically the next low comes down right at it, maybe in wicks below it. But the thing is, it closes higher, the closing. But you can still catch a daily wick if that were to happen. Pick it up at this daily 200 EMA right at $2.90, just under, barely under $3. So my price target for Pirate Chain to scoop it up is probably $2.99. Like the price is right. That'd be roughly where, or maybe even $2.90, $2.90 to $2.99, somewhere just under $3. And I think when this happens from an EMA standpoint, Harmony 1 and Pirate Chain would do something fairly similar, but Pirate Chain likely would wick down to the daily 200, breaking this higher low structure barely, but not on a closing basis, but yes, on a wick, while Harmony 1 makes a higher low, doesn't break the structure. However, tit for tat, it wicks below the daily 200, unlike Harmony 1. So they're similar plays, and that's what I'm seeing for these two. All right, so let's do some Theta. So Theta is structured even lower relative to its daily 200 EMA. So we might have to pull up the weeklies as well, but before I do that, I want to label this. So my daily EMAs that I draw in are solid lines, and my weeklies are going to be dotted. So you can see here also that you had this bearish cross, just like on Harmony 1. The red went below the yellow, and it's just now getting that cross. However, it's getting the cross when Bitcoin's turning down. So this could get a little bit more downside move because it didn't reap the benefits of getting a pump before Bitcoin was looking, like it wants to correct a little bit. Which is indicative of price hanging out much lower in comparison to its daily 200 EMA. So I will label these, and this is something you can do on your chart too. Just label it weekly, 21, EMA, keep it there, and then you can get off of this time frame and look at it even on the 1 hour. So you can see how the 1 hour is bouncing around, or you could take trades off it if you think it's going to break one of these. So it's a really cool tool to use here. weekly 10 EMA, so I'll make this red because I have the red as the 10. And we'll see if this lines up with a horizontal similar to as it did on the other two assets, or a diagonal of a higher low structure. So daily 200 EMA. So I like to have things make sense on an EMA basis and a horizontal basis simultaneously, because if they don't make sense on both, it's a less statistically probable trade. I usually see price come down to where a particular EMA, which typically gets bounces, is crossing a horizontal. So that's essentially what I'm trying to do in this assessment. All right, so let me put price back on, get off the weekly. I'll go to the 8-hour chart. How about that? I'll take off my EMAs. So you can see here how the weekly 21 was acting as resistance here, right? And the 10 and 21 acted as resistance, flew past it, couldn't hold it, flew above it, got wiggly, this and that. And it looks like it wants to come down, potentially right it, go under it one more time, and make some 1, 2, a third low in a row, each of them higher. So that's what I'm seeing for Theta. And so I'm thinking price targets for Theta would be about $6.60. Now, it could correct a little bit lower than that because it's already so close to its daily 200. I don't think that would be much of a correction in light of, for say, a Bitcoin correcting 16%. I think Theta would correct more than 16%. I would give it like 25%, which would make it do something very similar to what I was guessing for Pirate Chain, which is look like you're breaking this market structure low, but on a daily basis, close slightly above. So I'm going to have to go to the daily so you can see what I'm saying. So I actually think it's more probable that Theta does not hold this line because it's just barely above it, and it did not get the opportunity to race up well above it with Bitcoin's bullishness. And I think it's more likely that it wants to come down and test this horizontal right here. We have a lot of activity. Candle wick, candle wick, candle wick, wick, broke below it, got major downside move right as you cross this important line, got back above it, support, support, support. I think it's going to want to come back down here and hit it one more time. Very similar to the structure, and it might actually look like it breaks structure, but it'll likely close a day above this line with a wick below. So if it wicks below something to this degree, to that level, I would say that should be between, I would say it should be around 25%, because I think Bitcoin will correct at least 16%. And if Bitcoin does that, I would say a stronger altcoin like Theta would correct just a little more. Not something like a small alt, which would correct 40% if Bitcoin, corrects 18% or 16%. But let's see what that is. So that's 31%. So it's a little bit more than 25%. But I'm seeing, let's see, where else could it stop? Let's see. So I bet 25 actually might align with the top of this. So maybe it could come down here and base off the top of that structure. 30% might be a little steep. $6.07. So between $5.70 to $6.05 would be my zone to buy back. So if I wanted to buy $1,000 of Theta, I wouldn't try to put a limit buy for $1,000 right there. Rather, I would do something like either an even distribution of multiple sell orders for, let's say, $200 a piece. So this is 200, this is 200, an even distribution, 200, 200, 200, stacked one here. So this one up top would go to the top line. The bottom one would go to the bottom line. And the three in the middle would go in the middle of these two price targets that I gave you. That's how I would do a plan of attack for this asset, because it's going to be, this graph, this chart is a little harder to read, and it's going to be harder to guess where it's going to stop. So I would pick multiple spots, and if only some of your orders hit, let's say Harmony only comes down to that top area, barely wicks past it. so that you've only picked up $400 of Harmony 1. When you have $600 chilling here, you can just cancel those orders and market buy on the way up. But if it wicks way below, at least you were buying Harmony much lower than your original thought, right? So the staggering limit buys lower than where price actually goes and it bounces right off, that's fine. At least you caught the ultimate low, right? With a portion of it. That's really the only way to buy exact lows, is to buy much below price, take a darn good guess, stratify it down. If these never hit, who cares? At least I bought the ultimate low. It only came down to that level. I have to cancel these orders and now I can market buy up. And I still get great prices, right? So that would be, and that is also in my 10 bag, or it might actually be in my straddle orders video that is in my library of playlist. So that's what I'm seeing for this. Let's try OMI real quick. No, that's OMI ago. Okay, so this is so young of an asset, it does not have a daily 200. However, and it looks, so actually OMI just did what I think the other assets are going to do. It's going to flirt with this higher low and make it look like it's not going to. So this is somewhere in the middle. Ugh. Yikes. It's still 25, so it's probably going to come down here and ride this one more time. So it's going to look like a bouncy ball, essentially. That's what I think will happen on OMI. Bouncy, bounce maybe one more, then go. Something to that effect. So my price target for buyback would be 2.3 cents for OMI. Or no, 0.0023. So about a little more than a fifth of a penny. Which is what I let people know that it would hit in the bear market. I said it over and over. It's going to be less than a fifth of a penny, and it happened much sooner than I thought. However, it's a good project. I think now is an okay time to pick it up personally, not financial advice. I'm not too big into large caps, even though that could be a big mistake, as a lot of people have told me, buying meme coins and NFT stuff. But if you can pick this up, that might be a pretty good time to get it. Your Pokemon cards, your Ecomi Pokemon cards, not financial advice, entertainment only. I would be targeting 0.00235. Or if that's your target and you wanted to buy $1,000 of OMI, you can put like 400 at that line and then try to catch some wicks down here, or even 500. Dude, maybe 600 at this line, then use 400 left to try to catch further price action on a wick. And when you do that, it wicks right back up. And now you've got all that OMI and no one else can get it because you bought it all up. And it's instant greenery when you can do that. That's the thing. A lot of times these don't fill. You have to cancel orders and market buy if you want the rest of the $400, because you only bought 600 at this line. However, the cool thing about taking that risk, it's really actually a very small risk comparatively to a lot of types of trading, but the risk isn't really that bad either. The risk in specific terms of these don't get filled because you just cancel them and market buy up somewhere close to this line or just barely above it, right? So that risk is not that big of a deal. Obviously, there's always a risk. Everything just tanks down, like Bitcoin screamed down to 29K. Now, that is the biggest risk in all of trading. So if you want to use your, put in stops here, which means you get out of a trade, you automatically sell if price keeps tanking, you can do that. I believe I have a video in my library section also on how to set stops. I typically don't use a lot of stops when I'm trying to buy dips and altcoins, but a lot of people do, and I'm not suggesting not to do it. Just over time, I've found that all the stoppage I get, a lot of times it stops me out and goes right back up. So I just try to buy very low. And so if you wanted to buy $1,000, putting $400 of orders somewhere just below that line to try to catch a wick would probably be a pretty good idea for OMI. All right, and then Dogecoin, and we'll wrap up. Okay, let's slap on the daily 200. So see how Doge did get a good run with Bitcoin's bullishness? So now its higher low might be substantially higher. And this green box I drew, this might actually stay more bullish than, much more bullish than a lot of assets compared to the daily 21. So it almost looks like now that it's got, so I probably drew this box when Doge was somewhere in here. And I think that's actually going to end up being too low. Because it went so much higher, I think I would have to move this box up to the next logical level, which might be somewhere like here. And Dogecoin will simply still hit the same EMA, but it'll do it later and higher. So I was a little premature on that, thinking the market was going to downturn. Daily 200 will be in here, so maybe it will go back down to it, but it'll be at a much higher level. And the way I picked that horizontal was you have a lot of price action here. See all these wicks hitting here? See all these wicks here? See all these wicks there? That's the top end of this box. And the bottom end is all the candle bodies here, that wick there, wick, wick, wick. So this area is going to be a pretty big point of interest. And so since Dogecoin moves much more violently than Bitcoin, I would imagine that that's like over a 35% move down versus Bitcoin's, let's say a 16 to 18% move down. So let's go top to here. That's 35%. And so this goes in line with the idea that Bitcoin dominance is doing something very similar to what I thought these altcoins are going to. So it broke its higher low structure. So low, higher low, higher low, higher low. It broke that one and this one. And I think a lot of altcoins might do something like this before heading back up. So I think that Bitcoin dominance is going to do it before then. And then once altcoins do something to this effect and start heading back up, then Bitcoin dominance will head back down. I think they'll take turns. So it's kind of interesting that Bitcoin dominance is doing almost the exact thing in terms of breaking structure of local lows before potentially moving back up, and so this is Bitcoin is just like 2 weeks ahead of what I think altcoins are going to do. Yeah, so 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks ahead. So if Bitcoin can squeeze out either a higher high and hit this around 50, or squeak out a lower high somewhere up here, something to this effect, or maybe even only on this trend line up to here, how much of an increase would that be? I'd probably be higher than that. Anyway, that would be the time that you're, so whatever your target for Bitcoin dominance is, that would be the time that your altcoins are most likely hitting your lower end price targets. And you can flip like once a day, look at Bitcoin dominance. If you think, if you see an up move and you feel that the tide is getting ready to change, right at that pinnacle, right when the tide is changing on Bitcoin dominance to head back down, since Bitcoin dominance would be at a local high, that means price of general altcoins are at a local low. So the timing of this was likely going to align very, very well. So as I said in the beginning of the video, last thing here, what I'm seeing that these assets are telling me is that Bitcoin might do something pretty similar, is make it look like it's going to break market structure of making a lower low, but only wick down below the daily 200, look like you're breaking that, get a lot of people short, and then it wicks back up and closes real strong up here all in one day. Whenever it starts breaking this, I see a big wick, something like that, and it closes red, maybe closes just below this daily 200. So I think Bitcoin's going to do something very, very similar to what these altcoins do, and that might give me a price target of, actually my original price target of 36.5. However, there is strong reason to believe that the 42 to 40K level from this height here, that height here, that all of this area could easily support Bitcoin. And it gets another move up before then doing a correction, but it's going to correct not as much. So you have 1, 2, 3, a series of 4 higher lows. but it's a bigger correction, but it still is up higher than this low here. That could easily happen as well. However, what altcoins are telling me is that things need to cool off. There's going to be a lot of flirtation around the daily 200, which is aligning with most assets on key horizontals, recent horizontals that should be, or most likely need to be tested before the entire market can move back up. So I'm feeling like the whole market, it just needs to say, hey, I flew past this, barely checked it once. So this, just relative to this area on all assets, right? And I'm going to come back down one more time just to make sure. So if I blast off, I've already established this definitely as a base, as opposed to just flying past it and never looking back. I think the whole market wants to put in some more time around the daily 200 just a little bit. And so because the main altcoins are telling me that too, so I think Bitcoin's going to do that, and I think there would be a wick past, maybe only down to like 38K actually. It might only wick down to here, and then close above here so it's the closure that counts. So if things wick down to even below here, but it closes above this line, well, that's still a higher low. It's the closure of the daily to keep a daily uptrend. The wick that you can have a $10,000 wick down to here, doesn't matter. As long as it closes up here, that's still a higher low and you're in a daily uptrend. So let's look at Ethereum though. Here's the issue. Ethereum and Cardano went up a lot more than everything else. And so that's why I said earlier in the video, you might want to watch that recent Bitcoin video where I highlight this. So this would be a big move down for Ethereum, 30% move. I don't see that happen. I see Ethereum potentially making a correction nice and slow, basing like this. So that would be like price that I'm drawing. And then what that would mean for this, instead of going all the way down, it's going to wait for it to come back up. So this whole time that it's waiting, going sideways and down-ish, so this is the daily 200 that I just drew out. So I just extended the daily 200, guessed its angle. So what this means, as Ethereum is doing from here to maybe here, altcoins will suffer that entire time, and Bitcoin dominance will go up like maybe until the middle of September, something to that effect, or the beginning, middle of September. Somewhere around September 10th is when I think that you might see some lows in, and that might be when Bitcoin dominance tops out. Instead of Ethereum making a large move down, right, to get down there, a quick, fast move, I think it's just going to be a nice swoop. And it's going to wait for this to catch up, right? As Bitcoin has already perhaps more quickly come down to this line. But as Ethereum's doing this little swoop and waiting, Bitcoin will be getting back above and slowly be marching up, but not aggressively. That's what I kind of see happening here. And I think that that's how a lot of these altcoin activities will reflect in the Ethereum chart. And that's what I got for you. So those are my price targets. If you liked what you saw and you're new, go ahead and hit subscribe. I do cover altcoins fairly regularly. I'm one of the few traders who does that. And if I start getting more requests, then I'll cover, larger caps, since, perhaps my covering a larger cap here brought you to this community. If you subscribe, just let me know what you're into. And if I get enough of those comments, then I'll, start updating my list that's over here on the right hand side, altcoins that I cover within the community regularly. And if you do subscribe because you're new and you liked what you saw, let me know if you want to be a cryptillion or a crypto crackhead. Those crypto pronouns are both gender fluid and gender neutral. I think the community has decided on that, but most cryptillions don't wake up a crackhead, or vice versa. So I don't know how fluid they would be. But that's what we got for you. And for returning folks, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, even if it's you suck, haha, and help the algo. We'll see you later.